Drew Peterson, the prime suspect in the disappearance of his fourth wife, Stacy Peterson, now indicted in the murder of his third wife, Kathleen Savio. Peterson was arrested yesterday near his home in Illinois in Bolingbrook. He will be arraigned this afternoon. Well, Peterson denies any wrongdoing in Savio's death or Stacy Peterson's disappearance. And our own CNN's Susan Roesgen has been following this case for us now and has the latest there from the detention center where he's being held. What can you tell us, Susan?
Well, Catherine, can you imagine this? He spent the night, this former police sergeant spent the night in jail here on a $20 million bond. They arrested him easily at a traffic stop. Illinois State Police took former cop Drew Peterson into custody for the murder of his third wife, Kathleen Savio. It is the latest twist in an investigation that started a year and a half ago. In October 2007, Drew Peterson's fourth wife, Stacy, disappeared.
Were you ever physical with her?
Never. And I kind of challenge anybody out there to find anybody that has ever even seen me mad. So
you don't have a temper?
No.
Are you in love with Stacy?
Very much so.
Peterson says he believes Stacy, who's 30 years younger than he is, ran off with another man. But police named Peterson their #1 suspect in her disappearance. Then they decided to exhume the body of wife number 3, Kathleen Savio. Kathleen and Drew had been divorcing 3 years earlier when she drowned in her bathtub, originally ruled an accident. But a second autopsy revealed bruises and a gash on the back of her head, and the coroner called it a homicide. Peterson is now charged with that murder, indicted by a grand jury Thursday. And although he often laughed and joked with reporters during the investigation, he's locked up now on a $20 million bond.
We want to send a strong message that that's a grave and serious matter. It's not a laughing matter, as has been made with this case.
Peterson's lawyer, Joel Brodsky, says he's going to fight that $20 million bond and the second autopsy.
The Savio case is a purely circumstantial case, which is tough for the prosecution in the first place. It has problematic forensic evidence. The original finding of the pathologist was that it was an accidental death. It's going to be a prosecution without a crime scene. It's going to be a very tough case for the prosecution. We're going to defend it tooth and nail.
Peterson's lawyer also says his client won't be tied to Stacy Peterson's disappearance because although she's been gone for a year and a half, no body has ever been found. Now, in a few hours here, Catherine, Drew Peterson is going to be arraigned. He's going to make his first court appearance, make his plea in this case, not guilty, we're sure. And again, his lawyer, Joel Brodsky, will probably really argue with the judge that that $20 million bond is just way too high. Whether he'll be able to get it lowered or not, don't know yet.
And Susan, it's a little confusing on why the injuries that Savio's wife, that they found in the first autopsy, they ruled accidental, and then second autopsy, they say, no, this wasn't an accident.
You know, in the first autopsy, at that time, shortly after her body was found back in 2004, you have to remember that Drew Peterson, Catherine, was still a full police sergeant here in a suburban Chicago town. It's not that likely usually that law enforcement will arrest another member of law enforcement for something like this. That could be part of this. But also at that time, they said, well, yes, there were some bumps and bruises on her. She had a gash in the back of her head. But that might have been consistent, the first coroner said, with a sort of a fall in the bathtub in which she apparently drowned. Now, the second autopsy showed that that gash in the back of her head had actually left her hair completely bloody, and the second coroner said that was not consistent with drowning in a bathtub. And in fact, the bathtub, Catherine, was dry when Kathleen Savio's body was found. So you have to wonder, okay, she drowned, but did all the water run out of the bathtub? So there's just enough of an inconsistency there that's why Joel Brodsky, Drew Peterson's lawyer, says that he thinks he can really fight that it's going to be problematic, in his word, for the prosecution to say, well, the earlier autopsy it's an accident, but we now believe the second autopsy, also done by a coroner, a forensic scientist, says it was an intentional drowning, and we're going to say that's what it was, and we're going to say that Drew Peterson did it. So it's going to be an interesting case in trial for sure.
And what is the latest on the disappearance of his fourth wife?
Well, you know, Stacy Peterson disappeared back in October of 2007, and then it was just a couple weeks later when they decided to go ahead and exhume the body of the third wife, because very early on, Drew Peterson was named the prime suspect in Stacy Peterson's disappearance. Now, he's never been charged with that, but his behavior during the last year and a half has really infuriated family and friends who were so angry that he has not participated in the searches for her. Instead, as I pointed out in that report, Catherine, he says that he believes that she's run off with another man. Now, that tip line to try to find Stacy Peterson is still open. Last night, the state's attorney here for Will County said that they have had more than 300 tips to that line. I have here, in fact, one of the missing person flyers, still trying to find Stacy Peterson. She is only 5'4", only weighs about 100 pounds, so she could be a distinctive person if there's a body found. But no body has been found, no physical evidence tying Drew Peterson to her disappearance, though he does remain the #1 suspect in her disappearance.
All right, Susan, thanks for staying on top of the case for us. Susan Roesgen.